Hare Krishna. Jai Lord Balaram. Today is the appearance day of Lord Balaram, and we'd like to welcome everyone to Krishna book reading, and we're going to read all the chapters that Srila Prabhupada gave us describing the glories of Lord Balaram. And before we begin, as we always do, let's offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane. To each other, Vanchakalpatrubhyas cha Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva cha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnave Vaishnave Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we have a wonderful addition to our program. The ITV devotees have added subtitles. So if you look on the bottom of the screen, as we're reading, you'll be able to read right along with us. And this will make hearing Krishna book much easier for you. So let's begin with chapter 15, the killing of Denakasura. In this way, Sri Krishna, along with his elder brother Balaram, passed the childhood age known as Kumara and stepped into the age of Pagonda from the 6th year up to the 10th. At that time, all the cowherd men conferred and agreed to give those boys who had passed their 5th year charge of the cows in the pasturing ground. Given charge of the cows, Krishna and Balaram traversed Vrindavan, purifying the land with their lotus footprints.
Accompanied by the cowherd boys and Balaram, Krishna brought forward the cows and played on his flute as he entered the forest of Vrindavan, which was full of flowers, vegetables, and pasturing grass. The Vrindavan forest was as sanctified as the clear mind of a devotee, and was full of bees, flowers, and fruits. There were chirping birds and clear water lakes, with waters that could relieve one of all fatigue. Sweet-smelling breezes blew away. Sweet-smelling breeze blew always, refreshing the mind and body. Krishna with his friends and Balaram entered the forest and, seeing the favorable situation, desired to enjoy the atmosphere to the fullest extent. Krishna saw all the trees overloaded with fruits and fresh twigs, bending down to touch the ground as if welcoming him by touching his lotus feet. He was very much pleased by the behavior of the trees, fruits, and flowers, and he began to smile, realizing their desires.
Krishna then spoke to his elder brother Balaram as follows: "My dear brother, you are superior to all of us, and your lotus feet are worshipped by the demigods. Just see how these trees, full with fruits and flowers, have bent down to worship your lotus feet. It appears that they are trying to get out of the darkness that has obliged them to accept the form of trees. Actually, the trees born in the land of Vrindavan are not ordinary living entities. Having held the impersonal point of view in their past lives, they have been put into this stationary condition of life. But now they have the opportunity of seeing you in Vrindavan, and they are praying for further advancement in spiritual life through your personal association. Generally, living entities in the mode of darkness obtain the bodies of trees. The impersonalist philosophers are in that darkness, but they eradicate it by taking full advantage of your presence. I think the drones that are buzzing all around you must have been your devotees in their past lives. They cannot leave your company because no one can be a better, more affectionate master than you. You are the supreme and original personality of Godhead, and the drones are just trying to spread your glories by chanting it every moment. I think some of them must be great sages, devotees of your lordships, and they are disguising themselves in the form of drones because they are unable to give up your company, even for a moment. My dear brother, you are the supreme worshipable Godhead. Just see how the peacocks are dancing before you in great ecstasy. The deer, whose behavior is just like that of the gopis, are welcoming you with the same affection. And the cuckoos, who are residing in the forest, are welcoming you with their joyful, sweet cries because they consider that your appearance in their home is so auspicious. Even though they are trees and animals, these residents of Vrindavan are glorifying you. They are prepared to welcome you to the best of their ability, as is the practice of great souls in receiving another great soul at home. As for the land, it is so pious and fortunate because the footprints of your lotus feet are marking its body.
It is quite natural for those Vrindavan inhabitants to thus receive a great personality like you. The herbs, creepers, and the plants are also so fortunate to touch your lotus feet, and by your touching the twigs with your fingernails, these small plants are also made glorious. As for the hills and the rivers, they are too now glorious because you are glancing at them. Above all, the damsels of Raj, the gopis, are the most glorious because you embrace them with your strong arms, being attracted by their beauty. In this way, Lord Krishna and Balaram began to enjoy residence of Vrindavan to their full satisfaction as they herded the cows and cows on the bank of Yamuna. In some places, Krishna and Balaram were accompanied by their friends. The boys were singing, imitating the humming sound of the tones and accompanying Krishna and Balaram, who were garlanded with the forest flowers. While walking, the boys sometimes imitated the quacking sound of the swans in the lakes, or when they saw the peacocks dancing, they imitated them before Krishna. Krishna also moved his neck, imitating the dancing and making his friends laugh.
The cows taken care of by Krishna had different names, and Krishna would call them with love. After hearing Krishna calling, the cows would immediately respond by mooing, and the boys would enjoy this exchange to their heart's content. They would all imitate the sound vibrations made by the different kinds of birds, especially the chakoras, peacocks, cuckoos, and bardarajas. Sometimes when they would see the weaker animals fleeing out of fear of the sounds of tigers and lions, the boys, along with Krishna and Balaram, would imitate the animals and run away with them. When they felt some fatigue, they would sit down, and Balaram would put his head on the lap of one of the boys just to take rest, and Krishna would immediately come and begin massaging the legs of Balaram. And sometimes Krishna would take a palm fan and fan the body of Balaram, causing a pleasing breeze to relieve him of his fatigue. Other boys would sometimes dance or sing while Balaram took rest. and sometimes they would wrestle amongst themselves or jump. When the boys were thus engaged, Krishna would immediately join them, and catching their hands, he would enjoy their company and laugh and praise their activities. When Krishna would feel tired and fatigued, he would sometimes take shelter of the root of a big tree or the lap of a cowherd boy and lie down. When he would lie down with a boy or a root as his pillow, some of the boys would come and massage his legs, and some would fan his body with a fan made from leaves. Some of the more talented boys would sing in very sweet voices to please him. Thus, very soon, his fatigue would go away. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, whose legs are tended by the goddess of fortune, shared himself with the cowherd boys as one of them, expanding his internal potency to appear exactly like a village boy. But despite his appearing just like a village boy, there were occasions when he proved himself to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes men pose themselves as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and cheat innocent people, but they can only cheat. They cannot exhibit the potency of God.
While Krishna was thus engaged in his transcendental pastimes, exhibiting his internal potency in the company of the supermost fortunate cowherd boys, there occurred another chance for him to exhibit the superhuman powers of Godhead. His most intimate friends, Srila, Subala, and Stoka Krishna, addressed Krishna and Balaram with great love and affection thus: "Dear Balaram, you are very powerful. Your arms are very strong. Dear Krishna, you are very expert in killing all kinds of disturbing demons. Will you kindly note that just near this place there is a big forest of name Talavan. This forest is full of palm trees, and all the trees are filled with fruits. Some have fallen down, and some are very ripe even in the trees. It is a very nice place, but because of a great demon, Dhenukasura, it is very difficult to go there. No one can reach the trees to collect the fruits. Dear Krishna and Balaram, this demon is present there in the form of an ass, and is surrounded by similar demons, friends who have assumed the same shape. All of them are very strong, so it is very difficult to approach this place. Dear brothers, you are the only persons who can kill such demons. Other than you, no one can go there for fear of being killed. Not even animals go there, and no birds are living there. They have all left. One can only appreciate the sweet aroma that is coming from that place. It appears that up until now, no one has tasted the sweet fruits there, either on the tree or on the ground. Dear Krishna, to tell you frankly, we are very attracted by the sweet aroma. Dear Balaram, if you like, let us all go there and enjoy these fruits. The aroma of the fruit is now spread everywhere. Don't you smell it from here?
When Balaram and Krishna were thus petitioned by their intimate friends, they were inclined to please them, and with smiling faces they proceeded toward the forest, surrounded by all their friends. Immediately upon entering the Talavan forest, Balaram began to yank the trees with his arms, exhibiting the strength of an elephant. Because of this jerking, all the ripe fruits fell down on the ground. Because of this jerking, all the ripe fruits fell down on the ground. Upon hearing the sound of the falling fruits, the demon Dhenukasura, who was living there in the form of an ass, approached with great force, shaking the whole field, so that all the trees moved as if there was an earthquake. The demon appeared before Balaram and kicked his chest with his hind legs. At first, Balaram did not say anything, but with great anger, the demon kicked him again more vehemently. This time, Balaram immediately caught hold of the legs of the ass with one hand, and wheeling him around and around, threw him into the treetops. While he was being wheeled around by Balaram, the demon lost his life. Balaram threw the demon into the biggest palm tree, and the demon's body was so heavy that the palm tree fell upon other trees, and several fell down. It appeared as if a great hurricane was passing through the forest, and all the trees were falling down one after another. This exhibition of extraordinary strength is not astonishing, because Balaram is the personality of Godhead known as Anantasesha Naga, who is holding all the planets on the hoods of his millions of heads. He maintains the whole cosmic manifestation exactly as horizontal and vertical threads hold the weaving of a cloth.
After the demon has been thrown into the trees, all the friends and associates of Dhenukasura immediately assembled and attacked Balarama and Krishna with great force. They were determined to retaliate and avenge the death of their friend. But Krishna and Balaram caught each of these asses by the hind legs and exactly in the same way wheeled them around. Thus they killed all of them and threw them into the palm trees. Because of the dead bodies of the asses, there was a panoramic scene. It appeared as if clouds of various colors were assembled in the trees. Hearing of this great incident, the demigods from the higher planets showered flowers on Krishna and Balaram and beat their drums and offered devotional prayers. A few days after the killing of Dhenukasura, people began to come into the Talavana forest to collect the fruits, and animals began to return without fear to feed on the nice grasses growing there. Just by chanting or hearing these transcendental activities and pastimes of the brothers Krishna and Balaram, one can amass pious activities.
When Krishna and Balaram entered the village of Vrindavan along with their friends, they played their flutes, and the boys praised their uncommon activities in the forest. Jai, Jai! Their faces were decorated with tilak and smeared with the dust raised by the cows, and Krishna's head was decorated with a peacock feather. Both he and Balaram played their flutes, and the young gopis were joyous to see Krishna returning home. All the gopis in Vrindavan remained very morose on account of Krishna's absence. All day they were thinking of Krishna in the forest, or of him herding the cows in the pasture. When they saw Krishna returning, all their anxieties were immediately relieved, and they began to look at his face the way drones hover over the honey of the lotus flower. When Krishna entered the village, the young gopis smiled and laughed. Krishna, while playing the flute, enjoyed the beautiful smiling faces of the gopis.
Then Krishna and Balaram were immediately received by the affectionate mothers, Yashoda and Rohini, who, according to the time's demands, began to fulfill the desires of their affectionate sons. Simultaneously, the mothers rendered service and bestowed benedictions upon their transcendental sons. They took care of their children by bathing them and dressing them very nicely. Krishna was dressed in yellowish garments and Balarama was dressed in bluish garments, and they were given all sorts of ornaments and flower garlands. Being relieved of the fatigue of their day's work in the pasturing ground, they looked refreshed and very beautiful. They were given palatable dishes by their mothers, and they pleasantly ate everything. After eating, they were seated nicely on clean bedding, and the mothers began to sing various songs of their activities. As soon as they lay down on the bedding, they very quickly fell fast asleep. In this way, Krishna and Balaram used to enjoy Vrindavan life as cowherd boys.
Sometimes Krishna used to go with his boyfriends and Balaram, and sometimes he used to go alone with his friends to the bank of the Jamuna and tend the cows. Gradually the summer season arrived, and one day, while in the field, the boys and cows became very thirsty and began to drink the water of the Jamuna. The river, however, had been made poisonous by the venom of the great serpent known as Kaliya. Because the water was so poisonous, the boys and cows became visibly affected immediately after drinking. They suddenly fell down on the ground, apparently dead. Then Krishna, who is the life of all that lives, simply cast his merciful glance over them, and all the boys and cows regained consciousness and began to look at one another with great astonishment. They could understand that by drinking the water of the Jamuna, they had died, and that the merciful glance of Krishna had restored their lives. Thus, they appreciated the mystic power of Krishna, who is known as Yogeshwara, the master of all mystic yogis. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 15th chapter of Krishna, the killing of Denakasura. Haribol. So now, Srila Prabhupada, the second chapter that describes Lord Balaram's glories is Krishna and Balaram destroying the forest fire, quelling the forest fire. So we'll begin on page 175. Chapter 17.
After 16, after subduing power.
Yes.
Extinguishing the fire.
Yeah.
Now we are going to read chapter 17, Extinguishing the Forest Fire. King Parikshit, after hearing of the chastisement of Kaliya, inquired from Shukadeva Goswami as to why Kaliya left his beautiful land and why Garuda was so antagonistic to him. Shukadeva Goswami informed the king that the island known as the Nagalai was inhabited by serpents and that Kaliya was one of the chief serpents there. Being accustomed to eating snakes, Garuda used to come to this island and kill many serpents at will. Some of them he actually ate, but some were unnecessarily killed. The reptile society became so disturbed that their leader Vasuki appealed to Lord Balarama for protection. Lord Balarama made an arrangement by which Garuda would not create a disturbance. On each half moon day, the reptile community would offer a serpent to Garuda. The serpent was to be kept underneath a tree as a sacrificial offering to Garuda. Garuda was satisfied with this offering, and therefore he did not disturb any other serpent.
But gradually, Kaliya took advantage of this situation. He was unnecessarily puffed up by the volume of his accumulated poison, as well as by his material power. And he thought, why should Garuda be offered this sacrifice? He then ceased offering any sacrifice. Instead, he himself ate the offering intended for Garuda. When Garuda, the great devotee carrier of Vishnu, understood that Kaliya was eating the offered sacrifices, he became very angry and rushed to the island to kill the offensive serpent. Kaliya tried to fight Garuda and faced him with his many hoods and poisonous sharp teeth. Kaliya attempted to bite him, and Garuda, the son of Tarksha, in great anger and with the great force befitting the carrier of Lord Vishnu, struck the body of Kaliya with his effulgent golden wings. Kaliya, who is also known as Kadrusuta, the son of Kadru, immediately fled to the lake known as Kaliya Rida, which lay within the Jamuna River and which Garuda could not approach.
Kaliya took shelter within the water of the Yamuna for the following reason. Just as Garuda went to the island of the Kaliya snake, he also used to go to Yamuna to catch the fish to eat. There was, however, a great yogi known as Saubhari Muni, who used to meditate within the water there and who was sympathetic with the fish. He asked Garuda not to come there and disturb the fish. Although Garuda was not under anyone's order, being the carrier of Lord Vishnu, he did not disobey the order of the great yogi. Instead of staying and eating many fish, he carried off one big fish who was their leader. Saubhari Muni was sorry that one of the leaders of the fish was taken away by Garuda, and thinking of their protection, he cursed Garuda with the following words: "Henceforward, from this day, if Garuda comes here to catch fish, then I say this with all my strength, he will be immediately killed."
The curse was known only to Kaliya. Kaliya was therefore confident that Garuda would not be able to come there, and so he thought it wise to take shelter of the lake within the Jamuna. But Kaliya's taking shelter of Saubhari Muni was not successful. He was driven away by the Jamuna. He was driven away from the Jamuna by Krishna, the master of Garuda. It may be noted that Garuda is directly related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is so powerful that he is never subject to anyone's order or curse. Actually, the cursing of Garuda, who is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam to be of the stature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, was an offense on the part of Saubhari Muni. Although Garuda did not try to retaliate, the Muni was not saved from his offensive act against a great Vaishnava personality. Due to this offense, Saubhari fell down from his yogic position and afterwards became a householder, a sense enjoyer in the material world. The fall down of Saubhari Muni, who was supposed to be absorbed in spiritual bliss by meditation, is an instruction to the offender of Vaishnavas.
When Krishna finally came out of Kaliya's lake, he was seen by all his friends and relatives on the bank of the Yamuna. He appeared before them, nicely decorated, stained all over the chandan pulp, bedecked with valuable jewels and stones, and almost completely covered with gold. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the cowherd boy and man, the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Maharaj Nand, and all the cows and calves saw Krishna becoming form of Yamuna. And It was as thought they had recovered their very life. When a person regains his life, naturally he becomes absorbed in pleasure and joyfulness. They each in turn pressed Krishna's to their chest, and thus they felt a great relief. Mother Yashoda, Rohini, Maharaj Nanda, and the cowherd man become so happy that as they embraced Krishna, they thought they has achieved their ultimate goal of life.
Balarama also embraced Krishna, but he was laughing because when everyone else had been so overwhelmed with anxiety, he had known what would happen to Krishna. All the trees on the bank of the Yamuna, along with all the cows, bulls, and calves, were full of pleasure because of Krishna's appearance there. The Brahmana inhabitants of Vrindavana immediately came with their wives to congratulate Krishna and his family members. And because Brahmanas are considered to be the spiritual masters of the society, they offered their blessings to Krishna and his family on account of Krishna's release. They also asked Maharaj Nanda to give them some charity on that occasion. Being so pleased by Krishna's return, Maharaj Nanda gave many cows and much gold in charity to the Brahmanas. While Nanda Maharaj was thus engaged, Mother Yashoda simply embraced Krishna and made him sit on her lap while she shed tears continuously.
Since it was almost night, and all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the cows and calves, were very tired, they decided to take their rest on the riverbank. In the middle of the night, while they were taking rest, there was suddenly a great forest fire, and it quickly appeared that the fire would soon devour all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. As soon as they felt the warmth of the fire, they immediately took shelter of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he was playing just like their child. They began to say, "Our dear Krishna, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, our dear Balaram, reservoir of all strength, please try to save us from this all-devouring and devastating fire. We have no shelter other than you. This devastating fire will swallow us all." Thus they prayed to Krishna, saying that they could not take any shelter other than his lotus feet. Lord Krishna, being compassionate upon his own townspeople, immediately swallowed up the whole forest fire and saved them. This was not impossible for Krishna because he is unlimited. He has unlimited power to do anything he desires. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 17th chapter of Krishna, extinguishing the forest fire. I thought that was about Balaram.
Killing the demon.
It's your turn. Yeah.
After extinguishing the chapter 18, killing the demon Lambasura. After extinguishing the devastating fire, Krishna, surrounded by his relative friends, calves, and bulls, and glorified by his friend singing again, entered Vrindavan, which is always full of cows. While Krishna and Balaram were enjoying life in Vrindavan in the midst of the cowherd boy and girls, the season gradually changed to summer. The summer season in India is not very much welcomed because of the excess heat. But in the Vrindavan, everyone was pleased because summer there appeared just like spring. This was possible only because Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are the controllers even of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, were residing there. In Vrindavan, there are many falls which are always pouring water, and the sound is so sweet that is curved the sound of the crickets. And because water flows all over the forest, always looks very green and beautiful.
The inhabitants of Vrindavan were never disturbed by the scorching heat of the sun or the high summer temperatures. The lakes of Vrindavan are surrounded by green grasses, and various kinds of lotus flowers bloom there, such as Kalhara, Kanja, and Utpala. And the air blowing in the Vrindavan carries the aromatic pollen of those lotus flowers. When the particles of the water from the waves of Yamuna, the lake and the waterfall touches the bodies of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they automatically felt a cooling effect. Therefore, they were practically undisturbed by the summer season. Vrindavan is such a nice place. Flowers are always blooming, and there are even various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and dancing, and bees are humming. The cuckoos there sing nicely in 5 kinds of tunes.
Krishna, the reservoir pleasure, blowing his flute, accompanied by his elder brother Balarama and the other cowherd boys and the cows, entered the beautiful forest of Vrindavan to enjoy the atmosphere. They walked into the midst of newly grown leaves of trees whose flowers resembled peacock feathers. They were garlanded by those flowers and decorated with saffron chalk. Sometimes they were dancing and singing, and sometimes wrestling with one another. While Krishna danced, some of the cowherd boys sang, and others played on flutes. Some bugled on buffalo's horns or clapped their hands, praising Krishna. Dear brother, you are dancing very nicely. Actually, all these boys were demigods descended from higher planets to assist Krishna in his pastimes. The demigods, garbed in the dress of the cowherd boys, were encouraging Krishna in his dancing, just as one artist encourages another with praise. Up to that time, neither Balarama nor Krishna had undergone the hair cutting ceremony. Therefore, their hair was clustered like crow's feathers. They were always playing hide and seek with their boy friends, or jumping or fighting with them. Sometimes, while his friends were chanting and dancing, Krishna would praise them. My dear friends, you are dancing and singing very nicely. The boys played at catching ball with fruits such as bell and amalka. They played blind man's buff, challenging and touching one another. Sometimes they imitated the forest deer and various kinds of birds. They joked with one another by imitating croaking frogs. and they enjoyed swinging underneath the trees. Sometimes they would play amongst themselves like a king and his subjects. In this way, Balarama and Krishna, along with all their friends, played all kinds of sports and enjoyed the soothing atmosphere of Vrindavan, full of rivers, lakes, rivulets, fine trees, and excellent gardens filled with fruits and flowers.
Once, while the boys were engaged in their transcendental pastimes, a great demon of the name Pralambasura entered their company, desiring to kidnap both Balaram and Krishna. Although Krishna was playing the part of a cowherd boy as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could understand everything, past, present, and future. So when Pralambasura entered their company, Krishna began to think how to kill the demon, but externally he received him as a friend. "Oh, my dear friend," he said, "it is very good that you have come to take part in our pastimes." Krishna then called all his friends and ordered them, "Now we shall play in pairs. We shall challenge one another in pairs." With this proposal, all the boys assembled together. Some of them took the side of Krishna, and some of them took the side of Balaram, and they arranged to play in duel. The defeated members in duel fighting had to carry the victorious members on their backs, as a horse carries its master. They began playing, and at the same time tended the cows as they proceeded through the Bandiravana forest.
The party of Balarama, accompanied by Sridama and Birsaba, came out victorious, and Krishna party had to carry them on their back through the Bhandirvan forest. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, being defeated, had to carry Sri Dama on his back, and Bhadrasena carried Birsaba, imitating their play. Pralambasura, who appeared there as a cowherd boy, carried Balarama on his back. Pralambasura was the greatest of the demons, and he had calculated that Krishna was the most powerful of the cowherd boys.
In order to avoid the company of Krishna, Pralambasur carried Balaram far away. The demon was undoubtedly very strong and powerful, but he was carrying Balaram, who is compared to a mountain. Therefore, he began to feel the burden, and thus he assumed his real form. When he appeared in his real feature, he was decorated with a golden helmet and earrings, and looked just like a cloud with lightning carrying the moon. Balaram observed the demon's body expanding up to the limits of the clouds, his eyes dazzling like blazing fire, and his mouth flashing with sharpened teeth. At first, Balaram was surprised by the demon's appearance. He began to wonder, how is that all of a sudden this carrier has changed in every way? But with a clear mind, he could quickly understand that he was being carried away from his friends by a demon who intended to kill him. Immediately, he struck the head of the demon with his strong fist. just as the king of the heavenly planets strike a mountain with his thunderbolt. Stricken by the feast of Balaram, the demon fell down dead, just like a snake with a smashed head, and blood poured from his mouth. When the demon fell, he made a tremendous sound, and it sounds as if a great hill were falling upon being struck by the thunderbolt of King Indra. All the boys then rushed to the spot. Astonished by the ghastly scene, they began to praise Balaram with these words, "Well done, well done." All of them then embraced Balaram with great affection, thinking that he had returned from death, and they offered their blessings and congratulations. All the demigods in the heavenly planets became very satisfied and showered the flowers of the transcendental body of Balaram. And they also offered their blessings and congratulations for his having killed the great demon Pralambasura. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 18th chapter of Krishna, killing the demon Pralambasura. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol.
Then now we'll go to Balaram visits Vrindavan. It's chapter 65. Chapter 65. Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan. No, from the book
Chapter 65. Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan. Lord Balaram became very anxious to see his father and mother in Vrindavan. Therefore, with great enthusiasm, he started on a chariot for Vrindavan. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had been anxious to see Krishna and Balaram for a very long time. When Lord Balaram returned to Vrindavan, all the cowherd boys and the gopis had grown up. But still, on his arrival, they all embraced him, and Balaram embraced them in reciprocation. After this, he came before Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda and offered his respectful obeisances. In response, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj offered their blessings unto him. They addressed him as Jagadishwar, or the Lord of the universe, who maintains everyone. The reason for this was that Krishna and Balaram maintain all living entities, and yet Nanda and Yashoda were put into such difficulties on account of their absence. Feeling like this, they embraced Balaram and seating him on their lap began their perpetual crying, wetting Balaram with their tears. Lord Balaram then offered his respectful obeisances to the elderly cowherd men and accepted the obeisances of the younger cowherd men. Thus, according to their different ages and relationships, Lord Balaram exchanged feelings of friendship with them. He shook hands with those who were his equal in age and friendship, and with loud laughing embraced each one of them.
Yeah. After being received by the cowherd men and boys, the gopis and the kings Nanda and Yashoda, Lord Balarama sat down. Feeling satisfied, and they all surrounded him. First, Lord Balarama inquired from them about their welfare, and then, since they had not seen him for such a long time, they began to ask him different questions. The inhabitants of Vrindavana had sacrificed everything for Krishna, simply being captivated by the lotus eyes of the Lord. Because of their great desire to love Krishna, they never desired anything like elevation to the heavenly planets or merging into the effulgence of Brahman to become one with the absolute truth. They were not even interested in enjoying a life of opulence, but were satisfied in living a simple life in the village as cowards. They were always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and didn't desire any personal benefits. And they were all so much in love with him that in his absence their voices faltered when they began to inquire from Balramji.
First, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai inquired, "My dear Balaram, are our friends like Vasudeva and others in the family doing well? Now you and Krishna are grown-up married men with children. In the happiness of family life, do you sometimes remember your poor father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi? It is very good news that the most sinful King Kamsa has been killed by you, and that our friends like Vasudeva and the others who had been harassed have now been relieved. It is also very good news that you and Krishna defeated Jarasandha and Kalyavana, who is now dead, and that you are now living in a fortified residence in Dwarka."
When the gopis arrived, Lord Brahma gazed over them with loving eyes. Being overjoyed, the gopis who had so long been mortified on account of Krishna and Balaram absent, began to ask about the welfare of the two brothers. They especially asked Balaram whether Krishna was enjoying his life surrounded by enlightened women of Dwarkapuri. Does he sometimes remember his father Nanda and his mother Yashoda and the other friends with whom he was so intimate behaved while in Vrindavan? Does Krishna have any plan to come here to see his mother Yashoda? And does he remember us gopis who are now pitiable bereft of his company? Krishna may have forgotten us in the midst of the cultured women of Dwarka, but as far as we are concerned, we still remember him by collecting flowers and sewing them into garlands. When he does not come, however, we simply pass our time by crying, if only he could come here and accept this garland we have made. Dear Lord Balaram, descendant of Dasra, you know that we would give up everything for Krishna's friendship. Even in the great distress, one cannot give up the connection of the family members. But although it might be possible for others, we gave up our father, mother, sister and relatives. But then Krishna, without caring a pinch of our renunciation, all of a sudden renounced us and went away. He broke our intimate relationship without serious consideration and left for foreign country. But he was so clever and cunning that he manufactured very nice words. He said, "My dear gopis, please do not worry. The service you have rendered me is impossible for me to repay. After all, we are women, so how could we disbelieve him? Now we can understand that his sweet words were simply for cheating us."
Prostrating Krishna's absence from Vrindavan, another gopi said, "My dear Balramji, we are of course villagers' girls, so Krishna could cheat us in that way. But what about the women of Dwarika? Don't think they are as foolish as we are. We village women might be misled by Krishna, but the women in the city of Dwarika are very clever and intelligent. Therefore, I would be surprised if such city women could be misled by Krishna and could believe his word.
Then another gopi began to speak. My dear friend, she said, Krishna is very clever in using words. No one can compete with him in that art. He can manufacture such colorful words and talk so sweetly that the heart of any woman would be misled. Besides that, he has perfected the art of smiling very attractively, and by seeing his smile, women become mad after him and give themselves to him without hesitation.
Another gopi, after hearing this, said, My dear friends, what is the use of talking about Krishna? If you are at all interested in passing time by talking, let us talk on some subject other than him. If cruel Krishna can pass his time without us, why can't we pass our time without Krishna? Of course, Krishna is passing his days without us very happily, but we cannot pass our days happily without him. When the gopis were talking in this way, their feelings for Krishna became more and more intense, and they were experiencing Krishna's smiling, Krishna's words of love, Krishna's attractive features, Krishna's characteristics, and Krishna's embraces. By the force of their ecstatic feelings, it appeared to them that Krishna was personally present and dancing before them. Because of their sweet remembrance of Krishna, they could not check their tears and they cried without consideration.
Lord Balarama, of course, could understand the ecstatic feelings of the gopis, and therefore he wanted to pacify them. He was expert in presenting an appeal, and thus, treating the gopis very respectfully, he began to narrate the stories of Krishna so tactfully that gopis became satisfied. To keep the gopis in Vrindavan satisfied, Lord Balarama stayed there continuously for 2 months, namely the month of Chaitra, that is March-April, and Vaishakam, that is April-May. For those 2 months, he kept himself among the gopis, and he passed every night with them in the forest of Vrindavan to satisfy their desire for conjugal love. Thus, Balarama also enjoyed the rasa dance with the gopis during those 2 months. Since the season was springtime, the breeze on the bank of Yamuna was blowing very mildly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, especially the flower known as the Kaumudi. Moonlight filled the sky and spread everywhere, and thus the banks of the Yamuna appeared very bright and pleasing, and Lord Balarama enjoyed the company of the gopis there.
The demigod known as Varuna sent his daughter Varuni in the form of liquid honey oozing from the hollows of the trees. Because of this honey, the whole forest became aromatic, and the sweet aroma of the liquid honey, Varuni, captivated Balaramji. Balaramji and all the gopis became very much attracted by the taste of the Varuni, and all of them drank it together. While drinking this natural beverage, all the gopis chanted the glories of Lord Balaram, and Lord Balaram felt very happy, as if he had become intoxicated by drinking that Varuni beverage. His eyes rolled in a pleasing attitude. He was decorated with long garlands of forest flowers, and the whole situation appeared to be a great function of happiness because of this transcendental bliss. Lord Balaram smiled beautifully, and the drops of perspiration decorating his face appeared like soothing morning dew.
While Balaram was in that happy mood, he desired to enjoy the company of the gopis in the water of Yamuna. Therefore, he called the Yamuna to come nearby. But Yamuna neglected the order of Balaramji, considering him intoxicated. Lord Balaram became very much displeased at the Yamuna's neglecting his order. He immediately wanted to scratch the land near the river with his plough share. Lord Balaram has two weapons, a plough and a club, from which he takes service when they are required. This time he wanted to bring Yamuna by force, and he took the help of his plough. He wanted to punish Yamuna because she did not come in obedience to his order. He addressed Yamuna, "You witch river, wretched river, you did not care for my order. Now I shall teach you a lesson. You did not come to me voluntarily. Now with the help of my plough, I shall force you to come. I shall divide you into hundreds of scattered streams."
When the Yamuna was treated like this, she became greatly afraid of the power of Balarama and immediately came in person, falling at his lotus feet and praying thus: "My dear Lord Balaram, you are the most powerful personality and you are pleasing to everyone. Unfortunately, I forget your glory's exalted position, but now I have come to my senses, and I remember that you hold all the planetary system on your head merely by your partial expansion Shesha. You are the sustainer of the whole universe. My dear Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are full with six opulence. Because I forget your omnipotences, I have mistakenly disobeyed your order, and thus I have become a great offender. But my dear Lord, please know that I am a soul surrendered into you, who are very affectionate to your devotees. Therefore, please excuse my impudence and mistakes, and by your causeless mercy, may you now release me."
Upon displaying such submissive attitude, the Yamuna was forgiven. And when she came nearby, Lord Balaram enjoyed the pleasure of swimming in her water, along with the gopis, in the same way that an elephant enjoys himself along with his many she-elephants. After a long time, when Lord Balaram had enjoyed to his full satisfaction, he came out of the water, and immediately a goddess of fortune offered him a nice blue garments and valuable necklaces made of gold. After bathing in Yamuna, Lord Balaram, dressed in blue garments and decorated with golden ornaments, looked very attractive to everyone. Lord Balaram's complexion is white, and when he was properly dressed, he looked exactly like the white elephant of King Indra in the heavenly planets. The river Yamuna still has many small branches due to being scratched by the plowshare of Lord Balarama. And all these branches of the river Yamuna still glorify the omnipotence of Lord Balarama.
Lord Balaram and the gopis enjoyed transcendental pastimes together every night for 2 months, and time passed so quickly that all those nights appeared to be only one night. In the presence of Lord Balaram, all the gopis and other inhabitants of Vrindavan became as cheerful as they had been before in the presence of both brothers, Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 65th chapter of Krishna. Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan.
So we'll read the last chapter. We have to read about. We'll read the last chapter, chapter 67. The last chapter glorifying Lord Balaram. We have to read the deliverance of Davida Gorilla, and then we'll conclude today.
Chapter 67. The Deliverance of Dvivida Gorilla. While Shukadeva Goswami continued to speak on the transcendental pastimes and the characteristics of Lord Krishna, King Parikshit, upon hearing him, became more and more enthusiastic and wanted to hear further. Shukadeva Goswami next narrated the story of Dvivida, the gorilla who was killed by Lord Balarama. This gorilla was a great friend of Bhaumasuram or Narakasuram, who was killed by Krishna in connection with his kidnapping 16,000 princes from all over the world. Dvivida was the minister of King Sugriva, his brother. Mainda was also a very powerful gorilla king. When Dvivida Gorilla heard the story of his friend Bhaumasura's being killed by Lord Krishna, he planned to create mischief throughout the country in order to avenge the death of Bhaumasura. His first business was to set fires in the village, towns, and industrial and mining places, as well as in the residential quarters of the mercantile men who were busy dairy farming and protecting cows. Sometimes he would uproot a big mountain and tear it to pieces. In this way, he created great disturbances all over the country, especially in the province of Kathwar. The city of Dwarka was situated in this Kathwar province, and because Lord Krishna used to live in this city, Dvivida specifically made it the target of disturbance.
Davida was as powerful as 10,000 elephants. Sometimes he would go to the seashore, and with his powerful hands, he would create so much disturbance in the sea that he would flood the neighboring cities and villages. Often he would go to the hermitages of great saintly persons and sages and cause a great disturbance by smashing their beautiful gardens and orchards. Not only did he create disturbances in that way, but sometimes he would pass urine and stool on their sacred sacrificial arenas. He would thus pollute the whole atmosphere. He also kidnapped both men and women, taking them away from their residential places by the caves of the mountains. After putting them within the caves, he would close the entrances with large chunks of stone. Like the bringy insect, which arrests and carries away many flies and other insects and puts them within the holes of the trees where it lives. Thus, Davida regularly defied the law and order of the country. Not only that, but he would sometimes pollute the female members of many aristocratic families by forcibly raping them.
While creating such disturbance all over the country, sometimes he heard very sweet musical sounds from Riviktaka mountain, and so he entered that mountain's region. There he saw Lord Balaram in the midst of many beautiful young girls, enjoying their company while singing and dancing. Devida became captivated by the beauty of Lord Balaram's body, whose every feature was very beautiful, decorated as he was with a garland of a lotus flower. Similarly, all the young girls present, dressed and garlanded with flowers, exhibited much beauty. Lord Balaram seemed fully intoxicated from drinking the Varuni beverages, and his eyes appeared to be rolling in a drunken state. Lord Balaram appeared just like the king of elephants in the midst of many she-elephants.
This gorilla by the name Devida could climb up into the trees and jump from one branch to another. Sometimes he would jerk the branches, creating the particular type of sound. So that Lord Balarama was greatly disturbed from the pleasing atmosphere. Sometime Devida would come before the woman and exhibit different type of caricatures. By nature, young women are apt to enjoy everything with laughter and joking. And when the gorilla came before them, they did not take him seriously but simply laughed at him. However, the gorilla was so rude that even in the presence of Balarama, he began to show the power of his body. Lower part of his body to the woman. And sometime he would come forward to show his teeth while moving his eyeballs. He disrespected the woman even in the presence of Balaram. Lord Balaram's names suggest not only that he is very powerful, but that he takes pleasure in exhibiting extraordinary strength. So he took a stone and threw it at Devida. The gorilla, however, artfully avoided being struck by the stone. In order to insult Balarama, the gorilla took away the elephant earthen pot in which the Varuni was kept. Devida, being thus intoxicated with his limited strength, began to tear off all the valuable clothes worn by Balaram and the accompanying young girls. He was so puffed up that he thought Balaram could not do anything to chasing him, and he chastised him, and he continued to offend Balaramji and his com- companions.
Companions. When Lord Balaram saw the disturbance created by the gorilla and heard that he had already performed many mischievous activities all over the country, he became very angry and decided to kill him. Immediately he took his club in his hands. The gorilla could understand that now Balaram was going to attack him. To counteract Balaram, he immediately uprooted a big oak tree, and with great force he came and struck Lord Balaram's head. Lord Balaram, however, immediately caught hold of the big tree and remained undisturbed, just like a great mountain. To retaliate, he took his club, named Sunanda, and hit the gorilla with it, severely injuring his head. Currents of blood flowed from the gorilla's head with great force, but the stream of blood simply enhanced his beauty like a stream of liquid manganese coming out a great mountain. The striking of Balaram's club did not even slightly disturb him. On the contrary, he immediately uprooted another big oak tree and after clipping off all its leaves again struck Balaram's head with it. But Balaram, with the help of his club, tore the tree to pieces. Since the gorilla was very angry, he took another tree in his hand and struck Lord Balaram's body. Again, Lord Balaram tore the tree to pieces, and fighting continued. Each time the gorilla would bring out a big tree to strike Balaram, Lord Balaram would tear the tree into pieces by striking off his club, and gorilla Dvivida would clutch another tree from another direction and attack Balaram in the same way.
As a result of this continuous fighting, the forest became treeless. When no more trees were available, Dvivida took help from the hills and threw large pieces of stone like rainfall upon the body of Balaram. Lord Balaram, in a great sporting mood, began to smash those big pieces of stones into mere pebbles. The gorilla, being bereft of all trees and stone slabs, now stood before Balaram and waved his strong fist. Then, with great force, he began to beat Lord Balaram's chest with his fists. This time, Lord Balaram became most angry. Since the gorilla was striking him with his hands, Lord Balaram would not strike him back with his own weapons, the club or the plough. Simply with his fist, he struck the collarbone of the gorilla. This blow proved fatal to Dvivida, who immediately vomited blood and fell unconscious upon the ground. When the gorilla fell, all the hills and forest appeared to totter. After this horrible incident, all the siddhas, great sages, and saintly persons from the upper planetary system showered flowers on the person of Lord Balaram and vibrated sounds glorifying his supremacy. All of them chanted, "All glories to Lord Balaram. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. By killing this great demon Dvivida, you have initiated an auspicious era for the world." All such jubilant sounds of victory were heard from outer space. After killing the great demon Dvivida and being worshipped by showers of flowers and glorious sounds of victory, Balaram returned to his capital city, Dwarka. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 67th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Dvivida Gorilla.
So that concludes our reading of Krishna book this week, many pastimes of Lord Balaram. And as we always do, let's offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane. To each other, Vanchakalpatrubhyas cha Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. All glories to Lord Balaram. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Krishna Book.